Gonna give it a minute or two to see if some more commissioners join. I know this is a new time for us.
Hello.
Hi.
Commissioner Redding Lallinger is on, Chair Esposito, just so you know.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Okay, for the sake of time, I'll get started and I'll just catch folks up as they come in. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Committee Chair Ashley Esposito. I would like to welcome you all to the November 24th, 2025 Policy Committee meeting. If you have not done so, please mute your phone. Please turn off your video if you are not a board member, the CEO, or her staff. I will now read a roll call of the board members to identify who is present. Please identify yourself first before speaking on the record. Chair Sally. Commissioner Ames Messenger. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay. Commissioner Redding Lallinger.
Reading Lounger present.
Thanks. Commissioner Chicas Guzman. So we have 4 absent and 1 present. I know a couple folks are going to come in, but so public comment, members of the public who would like to provide comment to this committee can do so in writing or a pre-recorded testimony. Please submit your written testimony or your pre-recorded video the day before the committee meeting. We have space for up to 5 individuals who will be given the opportunity to provide comment to the policy committee. Speakers will be granted 3 minutes, and all public comments should address the policies that we're discussing in this meeting. Individuals or groups interested in providing comment to the committee may sign up one of 3 ways. Email public.comment@bcps.k12.md.us, or you can call the board office at 443-642-4095, or visit the board office at 200 East North Avenue in room 406. For more information regarding the policy committee, please visit the board section of the City Schools website at baltimorecityschools.org under the policy section. And please remember, you can also provide comment and share feedback for any of City Schools policies and administrative regulations by using our revised policy committee feedback form. The form can be found on the website under at www.baltimorecityschools.org/page/board-policies. And finally, the chat function for our virtual meetings will not be used as a tool for gathering information or feedback or to answer any questions from the public. If you have follow-up questions or feedback to provide to the board, please email schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us and board staff will provide you a response. So first up on our agenda, well, first of all, welcome everyone. This is a different time for us to have a policy committee meeting, so I'm glad we got to squeeze this one in right before the holiday. And today we're going to spend some time discussing policy IGE, curriculum tier 3.
Just flagging that Dr. Dabrowski she's not a presenter yet, so she was going to introduce somebody, but I think Tanisha's working on making her a presenter.
Got it. Okay. It looks like she's a presenter now. Let's see if that works.
Can you unmute, Joan? Nope, apparently she can't unmute.
Okay. I think that's what I was having issues with last time too.
Hold on 1 second.
Chief Dabrowski, are you unmuted now? Because it looks like you should be on this end.
Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. It doesn't look like I can turn my camera on though.
Oh,
I don't want to hold up the presentation, so I'm not sure. We did ask that I could be a presenter. Let's try again. Let's see. Oh, there we go.
welcome.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Great.
So thank you. Appreciate the help. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joan Dabrowski. I'm the Chief Academic Officer. And this afternoon, we are pleased to bring to the board for your review is our first draft at the proposed revisions for Board Policy IGE, which is our curriculum policy and its associated regulations. I'm pleased today to be able to introduce our newest colleague here at City Schools, Dr. Kevin Cuppett, who is our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. So Dr. Cuppett comes to us by way of Frederick County Public Schools and has done extensive work in this space of curriculum and leadership in the academics area as part of his career. So we've been super excited to have Dr. Cuppett join the team and really lean in and jump into what is his first opportunity to be in front of the board around a curriculum, around this curriculum policy. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Cuppett to walk us through, and then we'll look forward to our questions and conversations once he's finished the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Dabrowski. Good afternoon, commissioners, colleagues, and members of the public. I'm happy to talk about curriculum all day long, but I've been asked to keep it to about 20 minutes and then have some opportunity for conversation. We are bringing proposed revisions to Board Policy IGE. This, again, as Dr. Dabrowski indicated, this is kind of a first exposure to the revisions that we're requesting. Next slide, please, Casey. Curriculum obviously connects to our board priorities very heavily. It's the foundation of priority one, but I would argue as a curriculum person that not only does it lead to this high quality teaching and learning, but I believe that teachers who are super successful in the classroom because of high quality curriculum and materials are easier to retain. I believe that there are things that we're doing in teaching and learning nowadays that engages families and community more. I would say that educational program expansion, which is another board priority, is supported by having high quality curriculum to expand those offerings to students. And I would say that from an equity perspective, well implemented curriculum and supported teachers who are supported by high quality professional learning do create some equity of experience for our students. So again, curriculum's the foundation. Next slide, please, Casey. We're going to go through there are three additional documents you had in addition to the slide deck. One is Policy IGE, and the other are the two regulations associated. We're going to go through some of those key features of this policy, talk about those proposed revisions that we have, and then share some information around the types of engagement that we hope to have, as well as a timeline for next steps. So key features. Now, as a general note, I would like to point out to commissioners that there are many components of what is called the curriculum management plan that has existed in city schools for a long time that have been now brought over and memorialized within policy. We just felt there were some things that should live there. So many of the features you might hear about as kind of revisions to the policy were actually ongoing practices here in city schools and may not necessarily be new to staff who were implementing that. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank the nearly 20 city schools leaders who participated in this revision process. I want to thank our legal team and Casey Davis in operations to really bring a lot of voices to bear on the adjustments to this policy. So let's talk about some of those key components. In the policy, you're going to see clear sections related to the purpose of the policy. That's on page 1. And then you'll start into the sections around the definitions so that we have clarity around what those key terms are. And those fall in pages 1 through 4. You also see some general expectations around curriculum on page 4, as well as some specific topics like standards, implementations, revisions, etc. Going from page 4 to 5, you'll note the charter school provisions, as well as specialized program exemptions for some programs that come with curriculum, like advanced placement, international baccalaureate, certain CTE programs, and certainly our dual enrollment program with our colleges. And I did mention earlier that this policy then connects to 2 regulations that we'll touch on as part of our presentation as well. IGERA is focused on curriculum, and IGERB is focused on our library media programs. Next slide, please. So why revise board policy? Well, it's been a while since this policy has been revised. The last was in 2019. If we all remember, a lot's happened in education, including navigating a pandemic and all of the lessons learned from that very difficult experience for all of us. There's been changes in state law and regulations in that meantime, and we'll talk about how that's impacted what we've done here. We also want to reflect our current practices. One of the things that we've added is a new learning management system. It's called Canvas. That's an unprecedented way for families and students to engage with curricular materials as that project rolls out and has a positive impact for more and more students. We're also using this policy to signal our commitment to content areas. We'll get into that a little bit more deeply here in a second. And policy is a great way for us to also start to standardize some of the communication that we have with our families around what we do in instruction. Next slide, please, Casey. So let's talk about some of those terms that were changed. We've added definitions for content standards, curriculum resources, and information literacy, all of which are defined in new COMAR guidance to school districts. We updated the definition of curriculum, again, to incorporate the language that we brought in from that curriculum management plan, as well as kind of the 3 types of curriculum that curriculum people think about, which is the written curriculum, that which we've prepared, the taught curriculum, what actually happens in classrooms, as well as the curriculum that we assess. We also added the definition of high quality instructional materials. You'll hear the acronym HQIMs. That is a large area of focus from the Maryland State Department of Education that comes with some very clear guidance. So we certainly wanted to align with that. For commissioners, we've added the Reveal Mathematics program, and we have our Wit and Wisdom ELA materials. Those are both considered high quality instructional materials under that MSDE designation. Next slide, please. So one of the adjustments we made is creating a more flexible timeline. In previous policy iteration, I believe it was a 5-year fixed time to review curriculum. Sometimes the materials that we have don't need a 5-year review, and sometimes they need a review sooner than that. And so we've made sure the language gives curricular leaders some flexibility. You'll see again, language is aligned to the curriculum management plan. We added a section for course approvals. You'll see that in section B4. What is the process by which we can have new courses approved here in city schools? And gave a lot of voice to our compliance reporting. So now we will be bringing to the board a yearly presentation around the program of study and curriculum guide. So they'll be here for approval for you all. Next slide. Another area that I mentioned is the signaling commitment to our content areas. So one of the ways we did that were to highlight the content standards associated with those areas. talked a little bit about what those content areas are, lifting them up in the policy, and also speaking to the idea that integration of standards does occur in teaching and learning in city schools. Things like our financial literacy or our environmental literacy standards are often interwoven in other courses. So let's dig a little bit deeper into those content areas. You'll see here that all of the content areas listed here are lifted up in the policy. I'll go all the way to the bottom on this slide and indicate that health and physical education are already addressed in board policy ADF, so it's not repeated here, although it is referenced. And I'd like to point out that the content areas that have an asterisk there also are required by the policy to have a strategic plan. And so the next slide, Casey. So on the strategic plan, this is a way that we operationalize this commitment in these areas. Certainly the commissioners and we as city school staff value all content areas. But this is an additional level of commitment and information that's provided in the development of these strategic plans. They ensure that we stay focused on that we operationalize it against certain metrics. And so the academics office is used to working with these strategic plans. We also provide an annual strategic plan report, progress report to the Board of Commissioners. Next slide. Let me just give you a specific example of how you'll see this within regulation IGRA. So this example is around fine arts. And I will tell you just as an anecdote, when I was researching city schools as part of my employment process, looking at a position, one of the documents I came across in my look at city schools was this fine arts strategic plan. And, my previous district, we did not have that. I'm a fine arts person by background. I was a visual arts teacher back in the 1900s. And I was very impressed to see this fine arts strategic plan. It was well written. I noticed it was part of a collective impact. So that actually spoke to the commitment city schools has around content areas, in this case, fine arts. So you can see that one of the first paragraphs that we have related to this is that commitment that the arts are more than the arts around an experience for students. It gives them areas of expression and cultivates their aesthetic sense. And you can see that in the commitment paragraph. And then the next section is really around those content standards. Now, we all know COMAR has requirements related to fine arts, and you can see that they're lifted up here. And the way we generally talk about that is at the elementary school that there's this broad opportunity for direct instruction, that in middle school, we continue that, but we also give students an opportunity to specialize. And then when we go into high school, that we have a set of sequential courses that allow for depth of study. And that's the goal of trying to move towards the requirements that are here in COMAR. And the strategic plan is the vehicle that's getting us headed in, continue to head in that direction. I will mention that we did report out at the Fine Arts Town Hall last week some of the significant gains that we've made in parts of that strategic plan, and we're able to hear feedback and questions from the community. So that was an excellent event that I had an opportunity to join with Dr. Santalisas and some of the fine arts staff here. As we continue, you'll see that there's a statement around that integration that I mentioned earlier. This is an area that we've been trying to build the capacity of our teachers to be able to integrate arts-related content and content standards into other areas of instruction, other content areas. You can see the call out here specifically for the strategic plan, that we will maintain that strategic plan. And in continuing with the example here in fine arts, I believe we're on the second iteration of our strategic plan. So it wasn't just a document we wrote, several years ago, and it's become a dynamic document in that it's been updated. And then also a budget commitment here in the fine arts that the board shall include clearly defined investments in arts programming. So that's how one of those content areas is set apart. Again, we have other content areas listed there, and you can check the specific information for each of those. All right, some additional changes related to COMAR. We did have in 2024, the freedom To Read Act was passed, which had very specific guidance related to our library media centers. Two things we'll lift up here is that we're aligning with these COMAR changes regarding the reconsideration process, which is that process when somebody has a concern or an objection around materials within the library. It certainly requires library media certified folks to be part of that process. And there's also a section in here about making sure that library people with certifications in library media are in the selection process for our materials, and that's something we do both here in city schools. So that's a call out specific to that. Next slide, Casey. So two areas that the board has responsibility with under COMAR is really in the lifting up of curriculum guides, as well as the programs of study or courses. So there are a couple things I'd like to highlight right here. We did have to kind of norm on the definition of what a curriculum guide was. When I started teaching many moons ago, your curriculum guide when you arrived in your school district was actually a binder full of the guidance that you would have for implementing your, in my case, my arts program. There was one for literacy, there was one for mathematics. So that term is kind of a throwback to that previous day. And so we've tried to modernize the definition here, because what would be in a curriculum guide for a career and technical education course might look fundamentally different than what we have in a world languages course, or what we might have in relationship to foundational literacy programming in grades K through 2. So we kind of normed on this definition across many of our curriculum leaders here. But in general, a curriculum guide is what will guide the teacher's instructional program, create coherence, and then also be able to respond to the varied learners that we have. And so, and one of the things that we'll be doing is making sure that these things are available for the public. And last but not least, the program of study or the course guide or the program of courses are things that are board approved, and those courses exist at our middle and high school level. Next slide, please, Casey. So one of the things that we wanted to be reflected in the policy is the communication in and around what curriculum is. You know, we have a lot of parents who would like to know, families are interested in what students are learning. They also want to learn how to help. And so this policy gave us an opportunity to do this. Now, one of the things we are required under the law is to make those curriculum guides and programs of study available. We do that if we ever get a request. But we'd like to move to the next level and have those curriculum guides live ultimately on the city schools website to increase transparency. I will also note that Canvas learning management system can provide a lot of transparency about day-to-day instruction for families whose students are logged onto that. They can look over the shoulder to see kind of what day-to-day things are happening in instruction. And I often say that that's a level of transparency far and above checking somebody's book bag for whatever they bring home from school, or asking your teenager, what did you do in class, right? You're going to get a variety of responses there, but looking over the shoulder in Canvas as that continues to get built out will increase that transparency. So these programs, the program of study for the students, middle school and high school, is kind of the guide for what is an educational story, what choices will students have. And so we want to make the descriptions related to our courses as clear as possible, and also provide some pathways for students as they can have some secondary success here in city schools. And the next slide, two other ways that we would like to continue to build this transparency and some consistency is around our course syllabi. You know, that's the statement that students bring home related to what's going to happen in a particular course. We'd like to see some more consistency in what information is available, because that's the very first way that we communicate to families the content that students will be engaging with. And so we're going to work with our partners in the schools office to really norm around what course syllabi should have in them. And also a big announcement just a few weeks ago, the publication of our family learning guides, fantastic resource for families to support their students in literacy and mathematics. So those are definitely would want to check those out. I've gone through them. Excellent publications, and the way that we've rolled them out here in city schools, we have flexibility to update those as we need to. Next slide, please, Casey. All right, some other adjustments here that we've lifted up in policy include spelling out city schools' approach to dealing with sensitive issues in classrooms and a use of civil discourse in our classrooms. Classrooms are vibrant, rich ecosystems of opinions and beliefs that all of our students bring in from their lived experiences. And we want classrooms to be a place where that can be explored in a safe way, in a supportive way, in an intellectually honest way. And so we have some information laid out in policy here. And also in the policy, we have some information about how we respond when there are concerns from family members about the nature of content or what a student is studying. Those are things that we navigate on a day-to-day basis, but now they're lifted up and live here in policy. Next slide. So this is a tier 3 engagement plan. And so all of the groups that you'll see here will be receiving copies of the policy and asked to provide feedback. I do want to lift up a couple of organizations in here. You can see that certainly our PTA Council is involved, but at the bottom there, we have the Baltimore Arts Education Initiative. For those of you who don't know, that's a broad umbrella group here that looks at Baltimore's arts education. Within it are representatives from a number of other groups that we engage with on a regular basis. I attended my first meeting last month, I believe it was. There'll be another meeting after the turn of the year. And then, so they'll have an opportunity to review the policy. And then our CTE advisory groups, there are some requirements around CTE as part of the Maryland Blueprint. And we felt that those would be groups that we would want to get the information because they also are an area that requires a strategic plan. Next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about just what next steps are. You obviously had a framing conversation back in June. We're meeting here today to do that first run. There will be a significant span of time for us to send the information out related to the policy to the engagement groups I was mentioning. And then first reader will be at the beginning of March, followed by a second reader in the month of May. So that concludes the presentation on policy IGE and its rated regulations. And I timed myself. That's 19 minutes and 29 seconds. So I feel pretty good about that.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll open it up for questions.
I'll jump in quickly, Chair, if that's okay.
Yep.
First of all, Kevin, welcome. Thank you for the presentation. The first question, you may not know because you're new. You mentioned that the strategic plans come to the board annually. Do you know when that happens and how that happens? I don't recall seeing those.
Yeah, I don't have the exact schedule, but I don't know if that's something that Ms. Davis might or Dr. Dabrowski might be able to provide a little more clarity to.
Great thing.
Yep. No, I'm happy to. So the updates on the strategic plan have come as part of the annual updates to the board regarding math or literacy or our CTE. So those are annual presentations. They often go to the Teaching and Learning Board, our fine arts as well. So we've incorporated the updates within the board updates. We include that strategic plan update. And that's, I think, the approach that we've planned going forward. I don't know if we've attached, Kevin, did we say a compliance report, or is it just that we're going to continue to have the annual update embedded in the strategic update embedded in the annual updates to the board?
It said update in the slides. It didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't think it said anything about a compliance report. I was just curious how
Yep.
we can look out for that. Just a quick follow-up on that. Thank you, Chief Dabrowski, for that. For the strategic plans for ELA and for math, I won't say I'm concerned. I'm eagerly awaiting the implementation of the changes to the state's new literacy policy and their math policy, which are ushering in some pretty big changes. To the sequence in high school math, to things will have to do with advanced math in the elementary levels to, the third grade reading policy. And I just, I know our fantastic chief is all over those because we've had conversations about it before. But I do think they require significant amounts of preparation and planning, and I'm sure that is happening. Would those be reflected in the strategic plan updates for ELA and math, the sort of how we sort of get to successful implementation of those changes? Like if we were to open those strategic plans up, would we see that reflected in there?
So we will actually, we have the math and ELA updates are coming to teaching and learning soon. I don't have the exact date in front of me now. My calendar's not open, but we do in both of those, to your point, are starting to share information around the impacts of the K through the primary literacy policy and the mathematics policy. So we're going to lay out for commissioners and the public what's some key information associated with those, because we do need to start that conversation. I will tell you that the majority of the time at the meetings that I attend with the Maryland State Department of Education around teaching and learning are referencing and dealing with these policies. So we are asking MSD for certain clarifications or additional information. So I think now that we will be able to present both the math and ELA updates, you're going to have more engagement information around that, because you're right, there are some significant shifts here. And we'll engage the community as we move through those.
Okay, I'm excited to hear that, and I think they're good changes. Frankly, I'm kind of excited about them. They're huge changes, and so we're talking about whole new courses in high school. We're talking about a totally different way of thinking about third grade literacy and the implications of proficiency in that grade alongside a whole new test. So there's a lot going on, and like I said, I'm very confident in our chief academic officer, and it sounds like Kevin, you stay abreast of these issues too. So I'm excited to dig in more. I just want to make sure our system is prepared. It seems like those strategic plans are the start of how we get ourselves prepared. So thank you. That's it for me on this one. I really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have questions? I know we have Commissioner Ames Messenger and Chicas Guzman joined us.
I appreciate the framing of arts, the strategic plan within this context, and I think it was really helpful in thinking about what that also looks like for social studies and science. As a former social studies teacher, your easily forgotten side hustles. So but I think at this point, just thinking and processing.
Well, I think you would take comfort that none of my directors of content will ever let their content area be forgotten. So they are great advocates, and that's our expectation for them. So, I have plenty of conversations about the future of programming in all of our content areas.
Excellent. Knowing some of them, I have no doubt.
And on that note, I know me and Commissioner Kenyatta Bay have been very passionate about the arts strategic plan and the possibility of arts policy being included. So I just wanted to thank you all for your work on this. Any other questions?
Coming, but not at this point.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for presenting, and welcome. And also welcome to Commissioner Mohammed, who I see is on here too, joining the policy committee. Okay, so next we have we had several compliance reports this month. We have GCO employee evaluations and updates. Do we have any questions for that one? Hearing none. I don't see any hands raised. And then we have IHAMA heroin and opioid addiction education. Do we have any questions?
No questions. I had a note. I appreciated the way that this report was framed in looking at what are the measures that we're taking to proactively intervene in the cycle, realizing that the reality of a lot of these incidences are not happening in schools, they're happening outside of school. And so I think just continuing to think and process through that of how are we equipping educators, partners, teachers, students to be looking and intervening proactively, realizing that oftentimes there are other signs and how we miss this communication. But I'm grateful for the perspective of this team, and even though that number is showing up as one, of their continued engagement with the larger process. And I think how can we as a system similarly follow behind and looking at how are we making sure that we're bringing all partners to the table to proactively engage with intervening in a timely way.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Unless we have JFD withdrawals and reentries. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
Yeah, just a comment from me, and I apologize because I tried to do the legwork on this, but I couldn't quite compare apples to apples. I'm trying to compare rates from last year to this year, and I pulled up the compliance report for last year, but the format seems a little bit different, or maybe I wasn't reading them correctly. Can someone just give me a sense for whether we've seen increases or decreases? It was hard for me to tell in comparing the last year report to this year report.
Hi, hello. This is Cora Parson, and I'm the special assistant for the chief of schools office. Which data set specifically were you interested in? The withdrawal?
The withdrawals, yeah. Specifically, yep, go ahead.
So actually we have a small reduction this year compared to last year's report. I don't have the actual number from last year's on me. I think it's a report, but this year for the W50s, we are well under 3,000. Last year, I think we spiked around like 35 to 3,700.
Right.
And this year's data, we did have an increase in ninth graders who were in that category. So that was a lot of the movement around our next steps and what we need to strategize on. Last year was one of the first full years that we had the on track to graduate coordinators. So that's probably something we're going to focus on when we do our summer learning and planning, to see how we can change how they are engaging with our students. Maybe we need to increase the frequency of touch points that they're having with our ninth graders, possibly starting. A lot of schools have picked up on bridge programs, although those are not mandated. But we're trying to look at some creative ways to see how we can connect with in a more meaningful way with our ninth graders. Because although it was a all-around decrease, the spike we saw that in our ninth grade students.
Got you. So I'm just trying to understand. So I want to make sure I'm looking at the right numbers and understanding them correctly. So like on the report for this year, I'm looking at, let me make sure it's this year because I have both reports open. That's 2024. Okay, good. Now this makes more sense. All right. So I just want to make sure. So I think on page 10, report for 2024, I see here withdrawals by age, and then the total is 3,232. Does that sound accurate for last year? 3,000?
Last year's, yes.
3,232. And we're comparing that this year to 2,228. But see, this is 220. This is where I'm a little bit confused, because in last year's, it looks like that number included W50s and 85, which there were only 17, and 86 and 88 and 89. which is more categories. And this year, that's why I was trying to compare across numbers.
We removed those categories because we didn't have tangible data for
Okay.
this school year that would actually give us, once the data was cleaned by our Office of OAA, we didn't have any tangible data that would give us something to compare it to.
Gotcha.
Because if it's under a certain amount of students, it comes up as a number that isn't valid for these type of comparisons.
Got you. So then if we're on, so then let's just say we're comparing W50 to W50. So then last year would have been 2,228. And this year would have been 2,257, which actually seems like an increase to me, right?
No, it's the other way around.
Oh, I'm toggling back and forth
yeah.
between. Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a
Mhm.
slight decrease. It's a slight
Yeah.
decrease. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. It was hard to tell because it looked like I wasn't looking at the similar chart from year to year.
Yes,
And I was just trying
so
to get a sense.
we try to keep it parallel as much as we can when we move from school year to school year. But if the numbers associated with the data, if they don't really give us anything that is tangible or for us to like use as a case point for how we're going to revamp our touch points with students, we can't really include it because it would give a false indicator. So say, for example, if it was like under 50 last year and then this year was 10, we wouldn't report those 10. So then it would look like 0 on the chart if we actually recorded it, and that would be like a indicator. Yeah.
I see. Okay. But the big story here is roughly the same, a little bit down from last year is sort of the big picture. Okay.
Yes. And then also just the focus this year will be with our ninth graders on how we can use those resources that we have to just get those deeper touch points, because as you saw in the report, it doesn't really tell the meaning behind it or some of the circumstances. Although when we dig into it on a school level, we do see and know some of those stories behind it. So just trying to work with our school operations managers, our principal and support staff that they have assigned to attendance to kind of dig into that when we start thinking about how we're going to revise some of these policies, or just working with the attendance team when they do a lot of their work and their engagement. And we may have to just consider more creative ways and more consistent ways that we do these touch points, so that we can try to see some numbers spike. I'm sorry, not spike.
We don't want them.
No, we do not want the numbers to spike.
We're on the same page. All right. Thank you, Cora. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I have a question. Do you all plan to track the pattern of withdrawals like down to the type of student to see if like certain students are being like disproportionately impacted or are withdrawing, such as special education, multilingual learners, foster care, and unhoused youth? Oh, wait, I think you're on mute.
Muted.
Oh.
Apologies. Apologies. I was muted. So the data, when it's given to us, it doesn't have those kind of indicators, but we definitely can consider those type of things, because we've started, like, as the years have progressed, we also are trying to look on how, and the work started here over in the school's office, how we can just continue to collaborate with other offices, because this work doesn't only sit with us. Our attendance, there are various reasons. So we always are working with transportation to see, like, what are the holdups? Are there any new route changes? Are there things that are just, stopping students from wanting to access education? The Reengagement Center does a lot of work. I touched on this inside of the report, and a lot of the touch points and some of the practices that they use, we in other offices can pick up on those things and use them to re-engage our students or just stop them from becoming a W50 in our own lanes. Because like I said, it's in academics, it's in enrollment, it's in the school's office. We have a lot of different ways that we can touch our students, but picking up from some of those foundations that they're doing in the Reengagement Center is definitely something that we concluded that we need to focus on when we do our summer planning for the upcoming school year. But I'm definitely happy to bring that back to the team to see how we can look into that, because a lot of the data that we're seeing now with other things, not just with withdrawals and reentries, have those categories aligned with them. And it's definitely, current to what's going on with state legislation, all those type of things.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, can I just chime in? But
we can report it a little bit differently because we do have the information. So we can make sure
Okay.
that we're reporting the student groups in the next time that we give that information to you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's helpful. Any other questions?
I had a question. I would say I'm waiting from, but he was saying he's having some connection issues. And some of this is this is challenging work. But looking at kind of within the recommendations and conclusion section of looking around kind of what the data sharing practices are, as well as kind of looking at how do you restructure and establish protocol. And you're like, obviously that is kind of the nature of the work that you'll be looking at in the next year. But I was wondering if kind of broadly speaking, what are some of the areas, so, you know, like if it's data sharing with like, who are the key partners that you're looking to bring through this? Like, what are the barriers that are preventing that? You know, is it school versus district office? Like kind of what are the nature of the things that are you're breaking down that are you're leading to looking for the next year? And then kind of with that, what are some of, whether that's budget requests, whether that is like tool requests, whether that is MOUs and partnerships, like kind of what are some of those barriers that you're looking at to kind of get into some of the things in your second and third paragraphs of the conclusion? Yeah. And if that's an easier thing to have a sidebar conversation on later or to set a thing, I know that this is part of a large and complex moving piece of work. But I was kind of, there's lots of things looking forward in this next season and was just looking to make sure that we as a subcommittee and a board were able to kind of anticipate where you hope it to go for that to make sure that that is resourced in the way that you need.
Absolutely. So I can expand on the local portion of it and then happy to take the rest of the questions written and then we can dive in on that as an office. But so as I mentioned, like we started like internally working with within the school's office. There are many different departments like our attendance office, suspension services, things of that nature to understand where our patterns are coming from. Everyone knows about the big 9:30 lift that we do to try to get our students in, but then we try to continue on with that informally with talking to other offices who do withdrawals, they do transfers, they may do safety transfers, administrative transfers. That happens inside of our enrollment department, inside of family and community engagement, because we do have a multilingual learner office. So we are trying to bridge those gaps internally first. Our Office of OAA does a wonderful job of helping us understand what the data is actually telling us. So we're hoping to like continue to bridge that gap with them, working a little bit closely with them when we work internally with our attendance team. We haven't really pinpointed one specific person because there are a lot of people over there that can help us interpret it in different ways. So we have been looking at that internally, actually this current school year. So definitely not sure if it's a budget thing that we have to consider because we're trying to use the people that we have. And honestly, in a lot of the work that we've been doing, it's just a lot of the movement has been about breaking silos and just figuring out how our jobs are blending together so that we can actually do it in a more robust way. So that is really our focus right now, thinking about who inside of our office or who inside of the building really has a footprint on these type of things. And sometimes it's maybe managing a child's schedule, right? And so we could work with academics to figure out if we're even meeting the child's needs and seeing if there are things that they're interested in, to ensure that they're coming back. We work with our principals when we have some of those high flyers to see, like, can we talk to them? You know, our school operations managers, they have their feet on the ground day in and day out to kind of get those real and like face value stories behind these numbers. So it's just about continuing that momentum and trying to get it in an organized way so that we can actually put it all together, make it make sense, and then build a plan that would help us carry it out. Sorry. So yeah, so carry it out for the future. So if that makes sense. I know that was a big answer, but it's a lot of moving pieces. I apologize.
No, that makes I would say having touched parts of this work really makes total sense. And just kind of from a logistic and administrative point, most of that data is living within Infinite Campus, which I know is a deep and continuing toolbox of tools. And kind of outside of that is just looking to figure out what are the other strategies as you work with outside partners, or I guess, are there other kind of key parts of where this data is living and moving?
Yeah, so as far as working with outside partners, I can't speak to that fully. I know that we just had some disconnects from certain partners that we've been using. If we do decide that once we come to a plan that we need outside support, we definitely have offices that are already working on it. Some schools are independently doing, engagement through outside contractors. So we would definitely pull in those resources, work with those principals that we know have seen traction in their numbers. Because when you think about chronic absenteeism and things like that, it ties into things like this. So if we see schools that are doing an amazing job getting those jumps with decreasing their chronic absenteeism, that's definitely a direction we can look in if they are using those type of things. We do not like to reinvent the wheel. So that would definitely be something that we would continue to look inside and see what people are using. And if they are engaging with people externally, we would definitely want to try to expand upon that. But also those things take time, because then the cost goes up, and then board letters and all of those things. So we definitely try to keep it in-house.
Any other questions? Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you for answering all the questions, Sue. Next, we have public comment. I believe we have one.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Dewana Starrett. I will read a comment from Julia DeBusolo from Arts Every Day. She writes, "Thank you, Commissioner Esposito, Dr. Dabrowski, and Dr. Cuppet for your leadership and for the thoughtful work that went into shaping the draft fine arts policy. Arts Every Day strongly supports the direction of this policy and deeply appreciates City Schools' clear commitment to providing high-quality, sequential, and equitable arts education for all students, as outlined in COMAR and reinforced throughout the draft. We are especially encouraged by the policy's emphasis on universal access, strategic planning, and delineated investments, all of which are critical to ensuring that every young person in Baltimore has the opportunity to learn, create, and belong through the arts. As long-standing partners in arts education across the district, we are pleased with the direction of this draft and view it as a significant and necessary step forward. We will follow up with a few minor suggested edits that we believe can further strengthen clarity and implementation, but our overarching message is one of strong support. We look forward to continued collaboration with City Schools and the board to ensure that Baltimore students receive the rich, well-rounded arts learning they deserve." And that concludes her testimony.
Awesome. Thank you. That is the end of our agenda. So our next policy meeting will be on December 22nd. It will be a virtual meeting where we will discuss policy JFC, intra-district student transfer policy, and JFCRA, JFCRA policy EEA, and EEA-RA, student transportation services, as well as policy JLCDB, anaphylaxis, identification and treatment in schools. And we will also receive compliance reports for JFA, residency, non-residency, and tuition, JFBC, informal kinship care. And we, per usual, will have spots for people to provide public comment. We have 5 spots for public comment from people or groups, and you can sign up during the designated time frame. Members of the public interested in submitting public comment during policy committee meetings can sign up by emailing public.comment@bcps.k12.md.us on the day of the scheduled meeting up until 4 p.m. before the policy committee meeting every 4th Tuesday of the month. In your email submission, you should include your name, address, email address, telephone number, and affiliation. If you would like to send an email submission, the email statement should be no longer than 400 words, which will be read aloud by our board staff. And an email message, another option is you can send a message with a 3-minute video that we will broadcast during the board meeting. And anyone submitting public comment must also complete a public comment agreement form. For more information regarding the policy committee and upcoming meetings, please visit the board section on the City Schools website under committee. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you all for being here with great questions.
Thank you, everyone. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Everybody in favor? Yes. Take thumbs up.
Yes. Have a wonderful break, everyone, and thank you for your work.
Yeah, have a great break. Hi, thank you for attending.
Thank you.